All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. First, we're going to establish quorum. Nicole?
Here.
John?
Here.
Meredith?
Here.
Jen?
Here.
Yana?
Here.
And Christina is absent. We have established a quorum and proceed to notice confirmation. Has the meeting been properly noticed, Meredith?
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much. And we'll move to adopting the agenda. Are there any questions or comments on the agenda? Hearing none, are there any motions?
I move that we adopt the agenda as listed.
There's a motion from Meredith. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second from Yana. Any questions or
That was
comments?
Jen.
Oh, sorry.
For my voice, one of them.
Echo. Oh, there we go. Okay. We have a motion from Meredith and a second from Jen. Any questions or comments before we proceed to vote? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda has been adopted. Now we can move to the superintendent's report.
No, I think we forgot to read the equity
Oh,
statement.
yes, you're right. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And I believe it is John's turn to read the equity statement. Do you have that handy?
I do. Now, Verona's equity statement is that each student has the access to the resources and educational rigor they need at the right moment in their education, regardless of race, gender, ethnicity, ability, language, family background, or family income.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And with that, we have adopted the agenda, so we can move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Roberts. Hopefully I'm getting a good voice out there. Good. All right, got a thumbs up. Thank you, Ms. Stanley. Mrs. Stanley. So good evening, everyone. Very excited to come before you today with the superintendent's report. We're moving forward. We will move into a practice of the superintendent's report be more in the area of updates in the form of celebrations and recognition, and also high-level topics that for the general public to know and understand before moving into our more policy-related work. So with that said, I want to take this opportunity to celebrate what I think has been probably one of the most emotional as well as fulfilling events, and that was the return of our students to school, all of our students to school, in a 5-day-a-week format across our district. The celebration of joy, the celebration of peer-to-peer interaction that was so missed, and the peer-to-adult interaction that was so missed. We know this joy to be true. We can hear it in their voices. You can see it in their faces, and the feedback that we are receiving as far as our students and their overexcitement to be back in this environment together really makes all the work worthwhile. We know we have a long ways to go, and we're not naive to that. But I just want to celebrate the biggest thing that we all come together to do, which is student achievement and the success of all of our students in the Verona Area School District. So thank you to all those that supported that work, that allow for us to open our doors and to keep our students safe as we continue to navigate the COVID-19 pandemic. This Friday, we will celebrate this high school and what the community has put forth in the form of resources and expectations in the form of a community open house that will be this Friday from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. As well as the following Saturday from 12 to 3 p.m. So we're at work today, and now that I am going blind, I have to throw my glasses on. So a couple of outcomes that we want and will enjoy is to really have an opportunity for our educators to support our community and come together in unity and celebration of not the building is one thing, but the community that's inside of our building is what we are most celebrating. And understanding and be able to see firsthand diverse clientele that we are serving and the academic excellence that we expect. In addition to opportunity to come together, there will be self-guided tours and informational posters that will be in English and Spanish, as well as videos explaining each stop along the tour. Several staff members and students will be available to answer questions and share information about the programs that are discussed. In honor of our time of healing, we'll do a healing tip along the way of each stop to help engage in making sure that we are taking care of ourselves emotionally, physically, and societally. Guests will complete a tour and passport and return to the reception table and receive a special thank you gift at the end of the tour. So we have a great prize, or prizes, at the end of the tour. So please stay for the whole thing. This will lead into our football game on Friday night. Well, the Roan Area School District Wildcats high school will take on Memorial High School. And so we're looking forward to a great competition that night. And in the spirit of competition, make sure that we have a friendly atmosphere where we are competing hard but also respecting our opponents. With that, we were able to add an additional highlight, so it's not on the slide, but I can verbally talk about it. We were able to secure former Wisconsin Badger and former Denver Bronco, Mr. Monte Ball. He will join us on Friday night. If you know his story and his new book, he will be here for a book signing that really correlates to the fight against mental health and his fight for and supporting mental health supports. And we couldn't think of a better way than to have one of our own come back to the state of Wisconsin. He has been supporting the Dane County area and navigating mental health supports, and his book is phenomenal. So we will have him here Friday night to do a meet and greet as well as sign copies of his book for those that are interested in purchasing a copy. So in for a great evening. Continue to advertise it, but looking forward to a really, really exciting day. Just really quick, I'm going to have Mr. Weezy make his way over to do a quick transportation update.
Good evening, board members. It's good to see everyone. Dr. Clarity and I thought it'd be a good idea just to do a quick update on the kind of state of the union relative to transportation. So as all of you are aware, we are continuing to experience a bus driver shortage, and had to come up with a solution late this summer, early this fall, where we could put ourselves in a position where the shortage wasn't so dire that we were going to have to report to you and to the community that we didn't have buses to transport our students to school. And in doing so, had to go from 2 to 3 bus loops in a matter of a few weeks. And this is honestly work that pre-pandemic would take years, for sure a year, of planning to make sure that we had all the kinks worked out to pull this off, and we did it in a matter of a few weeks. I am happy to report that there has not been a day that we have had to say, hey families, no bus driver today. Please do your best to find your son or daughter a way to school other than the public transportation that they're due. But also can say that it's come along with hiccups that we expected. But I can tell you that those hiccups have kind of become fewer and less on a day-to-day basis. I think today was probably our best day at dismissal, but we had the morning where this was the first time we've done late arrival for all of our schools, and we had a big old thunderstorm roll through at 7:30 that also put a kink into a few things. But things are, for the most part, getting better every day. I wanted to thank our community and our school-based leadership for continuing to work with us. We've had, I think, under 5 phone calls and emails to our transportation department relative to anything related to transportation headaches. Just shows that the community is understanding and knows that we're doing what we can to continue to improve. I wanted to continue to tell all the community, for those of you maybe tuning in online, we're still a solid 4 or 5 bus drivers short. We have buses that are continuing to arrive. The high school's getting out at 3:50. Half of our buses from kind of that B loop coming to the high school for the C loop are still pulling in after 3:50, which is not ideal. And that's just a product of having too few buses on the road for the A and B route. The issue kind of compounds itself when you have to run 3 loops. Essentially, we're adding 30% more variable to the daily transportation cycle. So we know that buses that are crowded at the elementary and middle school level that are taking longer than we'd like on those first routes would be on time if we were able to kind of lessen the strain on the whole system. There's some mild good news in the world of Badger Bus. Last week they did have 16 applicants, which was a high in terms of where they've been with all their recruiting strategies, and we're certainly hopeful many of them will work out and be able to kind of help us out. There have been small wins along the way, even one today. We had a bus that we had a solid 65 students on, middle school students, and telling a group of middle schoolers after an 8-hour day in masks, 3 to a seat, everyone get to the back of the bus, and having them go through that every day was not a perfect situation. We were able to peel off a portion of that route and split it in half, and then we had 35 on buses today. So the buses were far less crowded and more streamlined in terms of them completing their route. So in general, happy to answer any questions. We are getting better at this on an everyday basis. Again, I think we'll be there if we can get another 4 or 5 buses on the road. But big idea, community has been amazing. Our principals have been just outstanding. John Bremer's done an amazing job, and it's a work in progress. So I'm happy to answer any questions that folks have.
Any questions from the board?
I have a quick question. Do we have, or maybe any staffing from us on buses, like support staff? I don't know if that's a thing, or if that's our staff, or if that's professional staff. Is that something else that's in conversation?
Yeah, and that has happened already a little bit, where we have had some school-based staff riding buses to support some things going on. We had a middle school route that was just full, and we're having to continue to remind all of our adults that some of our students haven't been in school for almost 2 full years, and kind of training and reteaching appropriate behaviors on buses, super important. So we have been doing that as needed. We had a middle school bus that needed some adult attention over the last couple of weeks, and we've been doing that as we can. Yep. Other questions at all?
I just wanted to say a quick thank you. I have heard other schools in the area, clearly this is a big issue, a statewide shortage, and I heard a mother was raving about a school district telling her the day before school started that her child wouldn't have transportation. And I was so proud that we didn't have to do that to any of our families. So thank you for figuring this out in such a short time frame, and thank you to all of our drivers and the staff for doing this great job.
It's reciprocal and mutual, so we appreciate that the board was incredibly understanding. You could have pushed back and said, 3:50, it's way too late for a high school student to get out, it's going to impact sports practices, go back to the drawing board. And you guys did not do that. So thank you as well, and continue to just get the word out that the driver shortage is still a thing, even though we've kind of figured it out, and we could use some more drivers.
All right, great job.
Thank you, Dr. Clary.
Moving forward, I want to provide an update on, for our COVID updates. Again, I want to reiterate our goal. Our goal was to, and is still, to ensure that all of our students have access to in-person instruction 5 days a week and have the ability to stay in school 5 days a week. Our COVID-19 updates will show that our pro-masking and our pro-vaccination stance has proven itself data-wise to be thus far effective, and we are encouraged by our trends and also want to take this opportunity to, if they, I can't imagine students are listening to the board meeting, but I'm going to pretend, to thank our students who have been absolutely phenomenal when, in adhering to being accepting and understanding the why behind our mask and masking and expectations. Our students want as close to a normal experience as possible and understand that this is the method that allows them to remain in that experience for and in a safe manner. So I just want to thank our students for being so accommodating and understanding the why behind these very tough decisions. As you know, on September 10th, PHMDC extended or came up with another indoor masking mandate with some that extends until October 8th. The new mandate does allow for some flexibility in our music classes that really are very accommodating and will allow for more indoor music programming, which was a concern of all of us here and across our county. So we are going to be able to utilize bell covers to support indoor instruction in our music programs, and so there was an increased flexibility with the newest mandate. Our current mitigation efforts have, even though our best attempts, we still do have some COVID-19 cases that we would want to make public in the area for transparency. To date, in our seven-day total, we have 1 pre-K, 2 elementary, 1 middle school, and 1 high school, for a total of 5 for Roanoke Area School District. Again, that's for our 7-day total of positive confirmed cases. Also, to increase our transparency and to help inform parent decision-making and family decision-making, by Wednesday at the latest, we will have our dashboard, our COVID-19 dashboard on our site up and running, so we can have our data available for families to know and understand the state of Roanoke Area School District when it comes to positive COVID cases, and be able to ask the questions or make appropriate decisions based off that data. So again, no later than Wednesday, we'll have that on the website. Today, we sent out a survey in partnership and collaboration with VESPA and VAEA. This survey was to understand our current staff vaccination rate and to continue to promote and support in the areas where vaccinations may be a barrier to vaccinations. We want to understand our current state, how close we are possibly getting to adult herd immunity, and then think about strategies to close any gaps. But we felt that it would be a misstep not to understand our current numbers before talking about any mandates or anything down the line. We're a long ways away from that. We want to be collaborative and be in partnership with our staff, to show that we support and definitely want them to get vaccinated, but also want to understand where we currently stand. So both internally and externally, we can communicate that number. I think that's it for COVID updates. Are there any questions on anything that are reported to this point? All right. Thank you all for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right, well, we can move on to public comment. I have one blue slip here submitted for public comment in person. Tom Durst, feel free to join us here on stage. Yep. And while you do that, I'll read the one comment that was submitted via email from Kristen Parent, a Sterner Prairie Elementary School parent. She writes, "I'm very much interested in the district implementing a COVID dashboard for the school year. I was shocked to find out that there currently isn't one. As a parent with 2 elementary students who are eligible for the vaccine, this information is important to me. It is nice to be in the know about where the numbers stand within our district and individual schools. I believe this helps us stay informed and educated about what is happening and leads to less speculation and rumors." So thank you, Dr. Clary, for that update. And I know that we've been shifting our website and it's been a tremendous improvement, and I certainly appreciate that effort. And there are a few things that obviously, will shake out in the process, so I'm glad that's going to be running my Wednesday. So
Thank you.
thanks for that comment, Kristen, and Tom, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm here tonight because I heard, or to talk a little about history. I heard a news report on 1310 WIBA Madison that said 60% of all college graduates are going to be women this year, 40% men. And when I first got on this board in 2000, the big push was women in STEM classes and technology classes, engineering, mathematics. And I said, my statement to this board, or to the public and the Board of Education was, how are you going to do it? And they said, well, right now the boys are getting all the praise and the girls aren't. And they said, we're just going to spread the praise out. And I said, and so now I look at it 21 years later, I'm not saying Verona did it. I'm saying the K-12 system failed the boys. They anticipate in a few years it'll be a 2-to-1 margin, girls to boys graduating from college. And as I look at history, I'm going, okay, right now you got critical race theory and your equity. Well, I read your equity statement, I go, wow, that is almost like just what they said in 2000 on the boys and girls thing. All I'm really here asking you guys to do is not take your eye off the ball, but let history repeat itself. So many times in life, we don't understand history, and it repeats itself. And I don't want to know, basically, we've kind of lost a generation of boys. What's the next generation? I don't know who could get hurt in the next generation. I just want everyone to succeed. I want to point out, I think you're at a critical time with your equity and your critical race theory stuff happening. You're at the beginning of it right now. And if it's not done right, it could really end up being bad in the long run. So, I'm just saying, with the situation 20 years ago, looks an awful lot like the situation now. And there's been damage done in the last 20 years. I don't want to see damage done again. So I'm just asking you all to keep an eye on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you for your comments. It's good to have you back, Tom. All right, any other public comments? None submitted at this point. So last call. All right, hearing none, we can move on to item 5 on the agenda. The matter is reserved for board action. Today before the board, we have the first reading of new policies proposed for consideration and adoption by the Board of Education. Over the past 4 months, the board deliberately and thoughtfully has created a new set of governing policies that will allow us to lead this organization, the Vernon School District, in a much more powerful and accountable way. All members have participated in this venture. We have refined our values-driven policies to the point that we are ready to adopt and begin the exciting journey of implementation toward alignment and improvement in our organizational performance. To summarize, today is the first reading on 42 pages of policies that will govern the following. Board governance culture, which will establish our annual work plan, roles and responsibilities, and other expectations for the board as a policy-making leadership body for the district. These policies also define and outline the relationship between the Board of Education and the superintendent, as well as the operational expectations that the Board of Education has defined and established for the district administrator to execute, and the accountability mechanisms that will be used to ensure compliance. Lastly, and I think most importantly, these policies also include results, which lay out for our district vision for each of our students as it relates to academic achievement, well-being, and what we hope for their membership in a diverse global society. So in short, these policies establish that we expect each student here at VASD will acquire the knowledge and skills necessary to achieve their personal goals, thrive in a diverse global society, and lead a healthy, self-fulfilling life. Additionally, as we adopt this new governance system, we will refer all of our current operational policies to the superintendent for his use in the day-to-day operation of the district. I'm certainly extremely proud of all the work that has gone into developing this new way of doing business for the board, and I know that it will improve our district service to our students in large part because this system focuses on producing positive results for students and codifies accountability and transparency into everything we do. When I first joined the board, I knew that we had much work to do to get us to a point where we were honestly, transparently, and thoughtfully taking stock of where we are as a district and resolving to always strive to do better and focus on improving how we serve our students. I certainly believe that this governance structure aligns our focus on that very effort, and I couldn't be more grateful to Dr. Clarity for his partnership on this work, and I'm thrilled to put all of these policies into practice, which, as you may have seen, the most obvious first change is the change in our agenda. So thank you all for your work, and I'm certainly interested in hearing from other board members as we proceed with the first reading today.
I'm also excited that we are moving towards some new policies that really help address some of the issues that the board has encountered over time. I think we've gotten more involved in some of the operational day-to-day issues, and by focusing on the operational day-to-day issues, we've kind of missed the forest for the trees, and that's, if we really mean that every student must be successful, then we need to be focusing on how we as the district are moving the needle on student achievement so that our students can achieve that success. Our students really deserve nothing less. And that's really the true work of the board, to set policy and to ensure we're achieving the goals that we're setting for our district. How we reach those goals is appropriately left to the professionals who are best equipped and trained for that difficult work, starting with our very well-equipped and highly trained superintendent, Dr. Clarity, who just spearhead that work. While the superintendent will have the latitude to do his job within the parameters of the policies that we have set forward without the interference of the board, he will also be held responsible to the board for heightened accountability and regular, meaningful reporting of the district's performance in compliance with the board policies. So it's a two-way street, and I think this really elevates the work of the board to where it should be. It focuses on the results of our district, and I'm thrilled that we as a board have all committed to doing this work and have all lent our voices to the creation of these policies, that this was truly a collaborative effort with the best interests of our students first and foremost, and I'm thrilled with the outcome.
If I could just add on to Meredith's statement, I agree. I mean, this group of people probably sat together for 30 plus hours and put in the time that I think when I first joined the board or even ran for the honor of being on the board represents the community and represents the people who send their children here or are part of the community in which those children reside. And at the end of the day, we care about kids. We want them to be successful. We want them to be happy. And we want them to succeed in the community after they leave our school. And so I think this will pivot us to be focusing on the right things instead of the operational details, which are still extremely important. But we employ extremely talented individuals to manage those things. You don't want me managing financing, but there are extremely talented people on our admin team who will be very happy to do that very thing. I think the second thing to call out here, and Meredith touched on it, is that this also very much supports the amazing talent that we have in the classrooms, in our school support staff. Parents are not educators, and we should not weigh in on specific tactics. We should weigh in on our expectations
Absolutely.
I'm really excited for us to look at and focus on our results and understanding the metrics, even to Tom's point, right, the history, and really understanding that history, grasping where we've been, what we've done, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and where we're going is super important for us right now as we heal and progress as a district. And so I think that as we look at what are we wanting out of our students, we keep asking the question of what does a VASD graduate look like? And I think that we have really been able to assess where we are and where we want to be and what do we need to put in place as a board to best equip our staff and our students to be successful in their endeavors as they work together to lead and progress our district. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see the metrics, to see the numbers, to see how we move and progress collectively and focus more on that instead of some of the things that have taken much of our time, that's taken our time and attention away from our students. So I think this is a great opportunity for us as a board to just showcase how much we trust that we have done the things we need to do and have put the people in place that need to be in place for us to reach our goals. And now we just have to do it and showcase that we're doing it every day.
Thank you. Other thoughts, comments?
Yeah, I did some reflecting, knowing we were coming into this evening, and honestly, I feel like you're all reading off of my card of the things I thought about. But, I mean, just from taking kind of a larger step back, even for the sake of the community, perhaps with this meeting, of just having a really clear definition of roles. And as a new board member, I so greatly appreciate that this is the timing with which we've taken this step, because it helps me as a board member understand what my lane is, and it's been described by all of you, and then importantly, what the line and the lane is of the other staff members, admin, leadership, and I think that will not only help our ability to get through the results that we want, but I think it will help the community, families, parents to know who is my touch point, who's my contact point for concerns, questions. I just appreciate sort of the way we can move forward with a little bit more transparency, as you said, Dr. Clarity, and just a clear path as to who is doing what and why. That's something that I really appreciate about this work as well.
Thank you.
And I'll just echo, I think, a lot of that. I think we all have similar sentiments around why we're excited for this, and how the need for this kind of came out of a want for more accountability and better lines of communication, not just for ourselves on the board, but with the community at large about who is supposed to do what in our district. But I think this is also an important part of a process of kind of bringing our district's governance, into the 21st century and beyond. We had a new governance structure a couple years ago that has already led to some fantastic outcomes. We've got new people in new roles that are doing a fantastic job. And I think this just feels like a next step in kind of adding a layer of accountability and professionalism to what we're doing. But it's also a very important step. I've been very focused on how understanding what our appropriate lanes are. And, as we look at the world around us, it seems like every debate that comes before us is an effort to get us out of our lane. I am a parent, but I am also an educator. And so getting pushed to talk about and adjudicate what freedom means, that's not what a school board does. That's what a court does. And so I appreciate these policies focusing us back on what our lane is, on student results, and working with the superintendent to reach those results, but also to hold everybody accountable. I think one of the things that struck me in our conversations that really hits home when you get first elected to the school board, you don't know what to ask and you don't know what to do. I certainly didn't know what to ask and what to do. And as we have more people come on and off the school board, it's very easy for them to ask the questions that are important to them because their students are involved in something and they have a want. And that's not fair to the community at large. It's not representation. But it's also, there are things that get missed because you don't know what to ask about. You don't know how to ask about the finances or about how schools run. And so seeing the system come into place that's not only adding a layer of transparency, but situating the board and all future boards to ask the necessary and pertinent questions around policy that they're supposed to, and not necessarily delve into the nitty-gritty that then distracts their time and resources from student outcomes. You know, we've had lots of debates since I've been here, and not a single one of them has been about reading scores yet. And so that's you know, I'm excited to have these in place, and I'm excited for our community to get used to these, so they start asking the right questions, to be perfectly honest.
No, if I could just add one thing that I didn't hear any of us say, and that's just that this is really an amazing board. I really wish that the community could have sat in on the conversations we had as we changed and drafted these policies. I mean, we didn't always agree. There were debates, there were laughs, there were disagreements. I mean, what words go where do we put commas and dashes? I mean, we discussed every single piece of everything that you'll see here and how we will govern this school board. And I can just say that, you know, although we didn't all disagree and we didn't all agree and we probably won't always agree with each other, but we are all committed to the same thing. We do all have the best interests of our students at heart, and I think just that and being able to be in a space together for hours at one time and understand, you know, each other and how we can contribute our strengths and work together to assist with our weaknesses that we feel within ourselves was extremely important and powerful for me. So I'm excited to do this work with this board, and I can reassure you that we are all committed to making sure that our students do well.
Yeah, and I'd like to just tag onto that because I think it's really important to note. We didn't come into this process with a lockstep approach. I think we all came with 7 different viewpoints, 7 different opinions, and the one same goal is that we want what's best for our students. But there were 7 different opinions that went into the formation of these, you know, resulting policies, which I think is critical for our community to know that it wasn't a rubber stamp, it was a hard process. And yet, we've gotten to a place where this entire, you know, panel sits here knowing that this is truly in the best interest of our district. And I think that is just such an amazing outcome, and I'm very proud of the hard work that went into getting there. And I feel very confident that we have reached a wonderful point that is going to help propel the district to reach the goals that and the expectations that we have.
Absolutely, I appreciate that, and I think just to underscore that a little more, you know, it for me at least feels like the culmination of years of work, but in reality, this is truly the beginning of where the hard work begins. It will be a process, and it will take practice to implement this to fidelity and make sure that we are always focused on our students and what's best for them, and eliminating the distractions, as you mentioned, John. But I know that this board is 100% committed to this, to our educational equity statement, and to our results policy, and you know, that is just miles forward in a month's time of working really hard at this. And I just know that it is going to benefit our students as we really dig into, you know, why we're all elected, to make sure that each of our students is able to succeed in their own individual way. So I appreciate all of your work on this, and certainly there's much work to be done from this point forward. Any other thoughts, comments? The next steps for us will be to adopt these policies at our next meeting. So there will be no formal action tonight, but we have done the first reading, which is a necessary step in the adoption of these policies. So any other comments, thoughts from the board? All right, with that, we can.
Before we transition to office, I just want to take this opportunity to thank our Board of Education time and commitment and dedication that it took to take on such a monumental transformation of board governance, utilizing a very, very aggressive timeline. When I say aggressive timeline, but it wasn't rushed one bit. There were times that we read a policy sentence to nausea. And that's just one thing I'm going to say. But it was with the explicit goal, as many of you stated, is to make sure that we thought about how this impacts every student in our organization and every student that we have committed to serve. We asked what ifs, and they were the right what ifs, and that takes time. It takes intentionality, but it shows a commitment to adhering to our ultimate goals and ensuring that every student really does succeed. There were times where it sounded like Jerry Maguire wasn't showing me the money, but it was showing me the data. And that is a transition that we are going through. And it's the right transition to show me empirical evidence of how our students are performing, and let's make our decisions and utilize our budget to support where our data shows that we need to make some shifts and make adjustments as an organization. I also appreciate, and am not going to shy away, and our team will not shy away from, not even a little bit, the accountability. The number of policies here means that I, as a superintendent, and this team that you've placed with me or given me the opportunity to hire, have a high level of accountability for results. And that accountability goes to our community as well, that we are accountable to students just based off metrics that we will present to you as a board, as part of our policy review on a monthly basis. And that in itself is a shift in practice, but it also is the very transparency that our community expects. They expect to know when we say Rona will be the national model for excellence. Well, show me the data that shows it, not we're the national model for excellence, grounded in equity. And that is our mission, that's our goal, and that's what we're going to work tirelessly to do. And I appreciate that opportunity to lead a district and work under a board that has that type of commitment. So this is getting to be a long-winded, but I'm sorry, but it's just a gracious thank you for going on this journey with us in the service of our students and our community.
Well, thank you, and again, this could not have been done without your partnership, and it has really been a fantastic few months so far, and I'm thrilled to see the work that we're going to accomplish in the future. So, any other comments, thoughts on this subject before we move on? All right, thank you all very much for that discussion. We will now move on to item 6, superintendent consent agenda. We have some financial items. Any individual discussion requested on any of these matters? Second call. Last call for discussion. Hearing none, I will make a motion to approve the superintendent's consent agenda. If there aren't any objections, this motion will be adopted. Are there any objections? Second call. Last call for any objections. Hearing none, the superintendent consent agenda has been adopted, and we can move on to the board consent agenda, which includes the budget hearing, annual meeting, and regular meeting minutes. Any individual discussion on the board consent agenda? Second call. Last call for any discussion. Hearing none, I'll make a motion to adopt the board consent agenda. If there aren't any objections, this motion will be adopted. Are there any objections? Second call. Last call for any objections. Hearing none, the board consent agenda has been adopted, and we can move on to item 8, future agenda items. We have our next meeting on September 20th, as I mentioned, where we'll be adopting the policies that we conducted the first reading on tonight. Any questions, comments, thoughts on the future agenda items and meeting dates?
No, I'm not sure if this would be appropriate as a future meeting date. Nicole and I are hosting a listening session at the Boys and Girls Club in Fitchburg tomorrow evening, starting at 6 p.m. Nicole, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, we're excited to kind of meet community members, especially if you're in Fitchburg, please come out. That's where Jen and I live, and so we wanted to kind of have a session to meet all of you in our home. And it starts at 6 p.m. at the Allied Drive location, and we're excited to see all of you there.
Excellent. Well, thank you for bringing that up. We certainly encourage board members to hold these types of events to engage the community, so appreciate your leadership on that. Any other questions or comments on future agenda items or meeting dates?
I have a quick question. Are our future meetings going to be here in this beautiful high school or in a beautiful?
No, don't get spoiled today.
Why?
The Badger Ridge location is currently under quick construction for the repairs to the stage, which is why we moved here today. We anticipate that it will be finished by the 20th. We were able to use the stage on the 20th, so we will be back at Badger Ridge Middle School for the 20th.
Thank you.
Good question. Any other questions, comments? All right. Hearing none, we can enter into recess to debrief. All right. Thank you all. Thank you all for attending.
Discussing that have been addressed or will be addressed to some capacity with our administration. So I am proud of how we focus on things that are of importance and are results driven for our students. So that was definitely exciting for me today as we kind of let our meeting in our meeting style. So I will open the floor. If anyone else has anything that they'd like to add to that as well.
I just wanted to quickly add on to Yana's comments. And again, when you talk in the spirit of, we're in the new high school and not being spoiled, I don't want us to get spoiled. This meetings will be this short because that cannot be promised. The agenda today did not have what would typically be a calendar policy review because we are still in the process of approving policies per board policy. And so I just want this more for the public to understand as part of this dialogue that while we began to talk about being results oriented, we did not necessarily demonstrate that yet today because we have to be under the guidance of the new policies before we put that into practice following the 20th meeting where we would have the second reading. So this is more of a clarification and transparency on that.
I'm gonna come back just really quick. I didn't explain what our debriefs are, so I'm sure it's like what's going on right here. So our debriefs are part of our new governing policy where we as a board will discuss how our meeting went, what went well, what were some of the things and areas of opportunities for us as a board, be it communication with each other, something that we talked about, something specific that we talked about, but our debrief is really for us to discuss how we can best continue to serve the school district through our board meetings. So that is what will happen every board meeting. We will have a short debrief to just talk about those things, and that debrief is going to be led by one of the board members Yeah, and I'd like to add on to that, and I think that's a great point. In the spirit of continuous improvement, the board also has to take accountability for continually improving our performance. And this is the opportunity for us to evaluate whether or not we've accomplished what we set out to do. Did our conversations stay focused on the agenda items? Did we stay focused truly with student results first and foremost? And that clarity, I'd like to again reiterate what you just said. This is an unusually short meeting, but I don't want that to be confused with lack of work, because this meeting represents truly, 50 hours of deep, deep work together, not even counting the work that happened independently. So this is the culmination of days and days and days and days of work that has occurred over the last 4 months. So this is a deceptively short meeting. But I do think, in the spirit of the debrief, I think that it was great that we were able to stay on topic, and we were able to all express our opinions about the upcoming policies.
Yeah, and I appreciate the explanation there. I certainly am still getting used to the reorder of the agenda, because the other one was basically muscle memory. So that will be an interesting transition. I'm sure we'll get better at it. But one question I did have is, I know we had talked about, raising hands and me, writing down who's in order, who's speaking, and going, from that point on, I guess, having a call on people. Today we didn't do that, but I'm curious, I thought it worked well, and maybe it's because it's a short meeting that we didn't feel pressed for time. But if you don't have feedback today on whether you prefer that format, think about it, and it's certainly something we can implement in the future.
Noah, my question to you, if we were to do that, is would it be distracting for you to kind of watch us raise our hands up and down, as opposed to like focusing on the meeting if we went with a strategy like that?
I don't think so, because I think right now I watch for body language, so I'm
Okay.
looking at your eyebrows to determine whether you're about to speak or not. So for me, I think, people lean and they look like they're trying to get my attention, and so I'm looking for it anyways. So for me, it's no difference. I think it's a matter of whether members are more comfortable, raising their hand being called on, or just naturally joining into the conversation. And we don't have to make that decision tonight, but I have no preference.
And that may also lead to determining if the way we sit is best, because we do sit kind of next to each other, so sometimes it's hard to see.
Yep.
If I turn that way, you won't see my eyebrows.
I think we did talk about that, making it more of a U, right? Any other thoughts?
Hey, I'm leading this
Yeah,
meeting.
sorry about that.
Any other thoughts?
I was just looking at our governance culture policy number 2. The sub-point 5, I think, is really timely with when we are doing this work and modeling this type of debrief and modeling, how we function as a board within a meeting space. It just really echoes some of the things that I think are happening in our classrooms about sort of creating cultural norms in classroom spaces, in schools. How do we, bring our best selves to the space? How do we find that equity of voice? How do we show respect to each other in our body language and our actions? So I appreciate that we get to model that in this space and with some policies that really talk about what we have as these norms in terms of how we want to conduct our business. So I think we did them well, but I appreciate sort of that frame and how we can talk about our debrief and how we just model what we, would expect is happening in our classrooms too, that students are engaging and teachers with each other about how do we do this productively and respectfully.
I will be excited to get to some sort of results and operational expectations-based conversations, to get our teeth into that language and get used to that.
I kind of wonder if, just kind of for the next meeting, we won't have any results prepared quite yet for the next meeting, correct? That's super soon. So I'm just wondering if, the results rubric might be a good thing to suggest, or just thinking out loud about ways to invite the community in to understand some of these highlighted policies. And so
getting to the annual work plan, I think, that's why I'm really anxious to get there.
That's right,
and
we
get
call
going.
that.
Yeah, and maybe explaining out what we mean when we say there's an organization or an operational expectation, like what that is, what we mean by results. You know, I mean, obviously that's a very fraught conversation, very long, but like, you know, kind of getting some of that terminology out there that we're going to continue to use.
I was just gonna say too, did we, I know that you read our results policy today, Noah, as part of the discussion, around the adoption of new policies, but I'm wondering if that's something that we're also wanting to read every meeting. I mean, I don't wanna get too, like, we're reading all of this stuff every single time, but I think that our results policy is equally as important as our equity statement, and so I'm just curious if we, I mean, it's gonna take us all of 2 more seconds to read that, but I think with focusing our meetings on results, we should read our results policy, as we do our equity statement.
I think that makes sense. Yeah, and I think, you know, one thing I would say about being anxious for results to come to the board, I think that, you know, one thing that the community isn't necessarily aware of is that this process usually takes at least a year, maybe 2, and we did it in 4 or 5 months, and that absolutely shows our urgency and desire to get this rolling right away and our commitment. But certainly, you know, in my 5 years on board, I don't think we've ever done that before. And so Dr. Clarity and his team are working really hard to build this plan as we're flying. And, you know, as we are adopting this agenda, you know, before we even adopt these policies, I think we're moving really fast. But certainly, Dr. Clarity, we want to make sure that we have, you know, meaningful monitoring sessions, both for the operational expectations and results. So we'll certainly welcome your feedback about pace and how we can get this right, because I know we're all very interested in doing it right now, including yourself. But we want to make sure we're doing it right.
You know, and it's like having a gift that you can't open yet, and I get that. I also want to make sure that we are authentic to our process of going through the policy review. And so I was intentional about not making assumptions that a policy will be reviewed or will be approved until we actually go through your previous reading today, and then the second reading next week, and then talk more in depth about now I can speak to these as VASD approved policies.
Yes.
And using that language, so that's intentional and not making assumptions of a policy review that we haven't completed yet.
Okay. Seeing no more comments, I do, again, this is just our debrief. We do not do our entire meeting over, and so this style will follow the rest of our meetings, and be about 10 to 15 minutes max. So great job. With that, Mr. President, I move that we adjourn this meeting.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I will second. Or so will Nicole.
There is a motion from Yana and a second from Nicole. I'll give it to you, Nicole. Any last comments or questions from the board before we adjourn?
Thank you, everyone, for the work that you put in and the time that you put in. This has been an honor to work with everybody, and I'm looking forward to moving forward on to the next steps. So, thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.